the Soccer Podcast from dailyfantasylobby.com.
Hey everybody, and welcome to dailyfantasylobby.com's weekly English Premier League soccer podcast. I'm Christy, and on the line today I have got Daily Fantasy Lobby CEO and owner David. Hi David, how are you doing?
Hi Christy, I'm good, thanks.
Marvellous. Okay, now normally in our podcasts we spend a little bit of time, 5-10 minutes at the start, discussing the major news in the daily fantasy sports industry this week. As it is, over the last couple of weeks there's been some crazy attention-grabbing headline news, but this week things have been a little bit quieter, so we're just going to fire straight on in with the Premier League chat, and if there is anything that requires or warrants our discussion, then we'll shoot a separate podcast for you. So, first things first. David, do you want to give us a quick rundown of your lineup this week?
Okay, so again this week we're looking at entering the 7k equaliser on DraftKings. Sure. That's an EPL contest involving 6 fixtures, so that's not the early game on Saturday, which is the Leicester game.
Sure.
They're at home to someone I can't remember. And obviously after a hard midweek game, they'll probably struggle a little bit, but don't worry about them because they're not included. So we've got Villa Everton, Liverpool QPR, Sunderland Southampton, Swansea Stoke, West Ham Burnley, and Man U against West Brom.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ask me something else?
Just your picks from these games. So we've got the slate. Just looking at it very, very briefly, certainly you would fancy Liverpool at home to QPR, even though Liverpool have been grossly off form recently. You would fancy Man U at home to West Brom, even though I think Man U have lost the last 2 and were pretty much dismantled last week by Everton. There are actually no real stick-ons here. As far as I can see, there's nobody that I would have odds on in this entire slate. What about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, and there's 2 teams, because I looked at betting European betting market this morning, and yeah, there's 2 teams. So obviously Man U and Liverpool are both heavily odds on. You'd have to stake sort of in US terms, probably, I don't know, $350 to get $100 back. Wow. I don't really buy that. Liverpool.
I'd be betting against them quite happily.
You would be, wouldn't you? Yeah. I mean, that's like indicates in the markets that you'll get about a goal and a quarter, goal and a half of a head start as the away team. I don't really like them, to be honest. Got Liverpool with a front 3 of Coutinho, Sterling and Lallana, not great scorers. I think you were saying there was a stat this week about Liverpool.
Yeah. It was one of these stats that was kicking around Twitter, and I readily admit I haven't checked the veracity of it, but it's kind of eye-catching. Liverpool's front 4 recognised strikers. So you've got Daniel Sturridge, Mario Balotelli, Fabio Borini, Ricky Lambert. Every single one of those, an established international player, any of whom would be moving for £10+ million. They've scored fewer goals between them in total than the Everton back 4, which is just crazy.
Yeah, that's worrying. But in Rodgers we trust, so I guess he knows what he's doing. But yeah, no, last week wasn't. I think I stacked my lineup with about 5 Liverpool guys, thinking there'd be goals from everywhere, and no. And
it was 0-0 going on 0-0.
Right, I never watched the game.
Honestly, the game could have played 10 times over, and there wasn't a goal in that one. It was total bore drop. Not even Gary Lineker on Match of the Day, the king of the hyping it up, could instill any sort of passion behind that game. It was just horrendous from start to finish.
Well, it's over now. We don't have to worry about it anymore. But, Mignolet makes my team as a goalkeeper. I thought, they're probably the most likely team to keep a clean sheet this week.
Yeah.
So at 5,600, he went in there.
Yep.
And defensive-wise, I went for Valencia, who's regarded as a winger, isn't he, playing at right back, but classing him as a defender. I think that's a guy I like. Actually, I think he's quite cheap at 5,300. I'm not sure who's going to play on the right-hand side of midfield for Man U, but I think without Miralles, for example, I think Ashley will be in the left, so maybe Mata a little bit in the right, but I think it'll be a slightly narrower midfield.
Interesting.
Which I think will be good for Valencia. I think it'll give him space to run into. To me, he's a much better guy running into space than he is he's not a tricky guy, is he? He's just fast.
He just punts the ball past them and runs.
Yeah. So I quite like him from that point of view. And I'm going for. Do you know what? I was going to go for Luke Shaw, and he was like 4,200 because I think Man U keep a clean sheet.
I've got Luke Shaw this week.
You've got Luke Shaw, 4,200.
Yeah.
Talk me through that.
Well, I think budgetary constraints were part of it. Mm-hmm. He's a good price. He's a good attacking player. He's got some assists in him. He's been slightly disappointing this season, but then the entire Man U team has been. But also, I think that a lot of the time, people seem to forget Man U don't play great football. Or they certainly haven't this season under Van Gaal. That said, of course, I'm not doubting he's a very good manager, but I think a lot of the time, what gets attributed to tactical mastery is actually just getting the ball into the box, into the good players around the area. And guys like Shaw and Valencia can deliver for the real good players up front.
Yeah, I think, Man U play a little bit of a style where they don't really quite get to bylines as much as they used to. They seem to get sort of 20 yards out and play these little chippy diagonals.
Yeah.
Looking to hit Fellaini and knock down. And then that's why probably Herrera and Daley Blind and Mata and whoever else running onto them has had a little bit of success this year.
Absolutely.
Scoring the odd goal. And, I'd have liked to maybe have stuck Fellaini in.
And it really strikes me as like just a classic example of the halo effect, where everything Van Gaal does is lauded by the press. In reality, if any other manager in the world punted the ball up all game long to a 6'4" guy who just sort of has his back to goal and tries to win fouls and knock the ball down, they'd be, their fans would be baying out for better football. But Van Gaal can do no wrong, apparently.
I know you'd be more likely to see Fellaini in the NFL draft as wide receiver than you would be as a sort of a cultured attacking player. But you know what? I'm not too critical on Fellaini.
He's a good player.
He can only do what he can do. He's not a bad player.
But the day that a team that has aspirations to win the league is building their style of play around such a limited player. As far as I'm concerned, that's the day that they've got no credibility as genuine title contenders.
Well, I know, and I think that goes right through this week's card. If you look at the reason, it's a sad day, right, when you get Man U and Liverpool both playing at home, and you genuinely struggle to want to pick one of their strikers. Yeah. Because you just don't see it. You just don't see a guy going to score loads of goals. Look, I mean, I've stuck in Falcao on the basis.
Give me 5 words on why you've got Falcao there.
He must score pretty soon.
I mean, you say must, but I read another one of these stats kicking around, something along the lines of he's pocketed £3 million since he last had a shot on target.
Amazing.
And that's probably 4 million now, because that was a week or two ago.
Go on, prove me wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I've left enough budget in there. I've got $500 of salary remaining, and if Van Persie, will be checking lineups on Daily Fantasy Log. That come out there, nice little plug there. And I've got enough money that if Van Persie starts, I'll swap him out. And
we do have Falcao starting on the Daily Fantasy Lobby predicted lineups ahead of Van Persie.
We have, but don't be too surprised if Van Gaal changes his mind.
That's true.
Sticks in Van Persie. So I think you've got to be like looking at these lineups. If you're not, get access to your app and you're not checking lineup, whatever else, and you're hamstrung. So so sad times at Man U, sad times at Liverpool. None of the strikers are really deemed that good to want to stick them in as a must play. I mean, you get people touting guys like, Charlie Austin, he's going to score this week. Charlie Austin, he might score this week at Anfield, he might not, but he's $9,000.
It's an awful lot. I mean, he's got a monstrously high FPPG.
I know, but he's playing for a team that are second bottom of the league. It's not like, they're going to go to Anfield and dominate the ball or anything like that. Nor is it that guys like Martin Skrtel are bad defenders. So
that's true. Unfortunately, Dejan Lovren, Martin Skrtel's partner.
Yeah, he's not been so good.
Oh, he's been horrendous this season. But I could bash Liverpool and Man U all day. It's one of my favourite hobbies. If we include Newcastle, then as far as I'm concerned, this is just like Christmas for me. Just laying into those teams.
Tell me, is Nigel Pearson become the new Alan Pardew?
Nigel Pearson I don't know if this news sort of made it to the States, where I know an awful lot of our viewers and listeners are. But if you didn't catch it, Nigel Pearson had a bizarre rant at a journalist midweek. The journalist asked a pretty innocuous question, and Nigel Pearson implied, along the lines of his players have had have been very hard done by the media. The media have really picked on his players, which frankly most people think is nonsense. The media have been very respectful of Leicester this season. They've played well, they've performed well, and they've strung a good few wins together. But Nigel Pearson really went all ad hominem on this guy, just completely attacked him, called him an ostrich, said his head was buried in the sand, called him an idiot, silly, stupid. It was bullying, frankly.
Yeah,
it was.
I'm sorry, Nigel. You're not quite good enough to get away with that. You're not Mourinho.
No, I know. You have to have the charm. This just came over as not a guy subtly trolling. This was just a guy bullying. Bullying a member of the press who asked a very fair, innocuous question.
Yeah.
It wasn't a personal attack of Pearson or Leicester. I know that Pearson's trying to instill that us against the world siege mentality that Mourinho is so famed for.
Yeah.
But it fell seriously short. It was really quite embarrassing. If you get the chance, search out that clip on Twitter. If you've got a strong stomach, for about 5 minutes of just a guy behaving like a Zoomer, frankly. So Nigel Pearson, while I don't dislike the guy as much as I dislike Alan Pardew at the moment, that is subject to change.
He's on your list.
He's on my list. He's definitely on the short list. We got Pardew just for years of being arrogant and proclaiming anything good that happens to have been down to him, and anything bad that happens to be down to circumstance. And Pearson is catching him up.
Good stuff. So tell me, who have you got in midfield? Just to get back to the
midfield. Obviously, I've got Gylfi.
Okay, every week. Yep.
Pick him every week. Just guaranteed points. He's brilliant. And I've gone for Angel Di Maria. Now, hear me out. I think Di Maria will start this weekend.
Okay, who's going to drop? Who's going to be dropped?
Well, I'm looking at the predicted lineup on dailyfantasylobby.com and the soccer/lineups page, and as far as I'm concerned, you've got Mata playing wide along with Young. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Di Maria starting. He cost a fortune. He's obviously a world-class talent, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Van Gaal rotate this week. So one of them wide men, maybe even Fellaini, to attempt a slightly different style against West Brom. If there's one thing West Brom have, it's grit. If there's one thing they don't have, it's pace in their own sort of final third. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Van Gaal curveball it up and bring Di Maria back. Is there anyone left in your team that we haven't discussed? Give us a couple of words on why you've gone for Leighton Baines. I think he's the only player we haven't discussed.
I had to pick someone who had more than a 10-point fantasy points per game average. Leighton Baines. As I say, I almost went for Luke Shaw, who was a lot cheaper, would have left me with like $2,000 remaining.
Yeah.
But then maybe this week Luke Shaw's a better player than Leighton Baines. I don't know. I just think he's kind of reliable. When you get a chance to put him in your team and you can afford him,
it would be a really, really top-loaded Man U team. You'd be running the risk of going like Liverpool last weekend.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the problem. 5 words on Jordan Henderson.
The ball will fall to him. That's 6 words. I just think he's another guy that's going to be driving from midfield, and Liverpool really get nothing up top, and I think the midfielders are more likely to score than the forwards for Liverpool. So
perfect. Okay, David, as always, it is an absolute pleasure. Guys, if you want to submit your team to myself and David for us to run the rule over, then just feel free. you can hit us up, info@dailyfantasylobby.com. You can catch us on Twitter @superlobby. Personally, I'm @KC151. David is @SFLpunter. It would be a pleasure to hear from you. Thanks, David.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll catch up with you next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.